Hey there, it's Kari at Studio R12 Stencils, and we have a super fun project for you today, and we are going to dive right in. It is officially fall, and we are ready to do a little sprucing up of our home decor, start using some of our favorite fall colors, and today we have a mix and match project with a couple of our favorite designs in our fall collection. We are going to be using a pumpkin and a scarecrow to mix and match for an adorable little piece of decor for your home. This was something that one of our stencil fans shared with us that they had painted by hand. So I wanted to show you how you could use stencils and kind of think outside the box to do a little mixing and matching. We already have our surface prepped with our cream number 22. I am working on a blog post that I'll have for you guys that I will share a link that you can see our fall 2024 color guide of colors that we like to use on our fall projects this year. So we have prepped this with a polyfoam brush. It just has one layer. I like to do more of a rustic fall look on my projects. So I like to do one layer. I don't really like them to be really bold and popping. So the first thing we are going to do is a dry fit of how we want to put our project together. So we have our pumpkin cutout shape, and then it also has the overlay. Now, I almost got caught when I was prepping this that I was going to paint my pumpkin orange and then paint the overlay with a brown. Well, once you look at this, that's not how this works. The base that you paint your pumpkin for this stencil is going to be what shows up as the lines. So we are going to base our pumpkin with a brown and orange combo and then put the overlay over top and then add in our highlighting with the orange we want to use. And then we are going to add on our scarecrow face. So I know it's a little hard to see. I'm going to flip over my board so you can kind of see how I'm lining this up on the brown. I'm not actually going to put the square stencil right square with my board because I don't want the hat to be cut off on top. I'm going to pull down my pumpkin so that it is right at the base. And then I can have the scarecrow face a little taller so that his face is more in the center of the pumpkin. I'm making sure to line up where the eyes are, that they are not going to be cut off by the top of the pumpkin. And it looks like that will be good to go. So there's a lot of moving parts with this one. I'm going to peel off. Well, I'm going to actually keep these together, flip over my surface to the correct side, and then put it back on so I know where they go. And I'm going to next tape down my pumpkin stencil on my surface so that it doesn't move. And then we're going to do a little bit of a masking off. So with this project, we don't need the stems and the stem and the leaves. So you have a couple of options here. You can use tape or you can use the Studio R12 multi-maskers. So with a portion of this, I'm going to just put a multi-masker down. The top portion of this project will be covered by the hat. So my multi-masker is just going to give me a straight line across the top that we will paint over. And that helps with taking up some extra space. I'm also going to tape this down pretty well because when it was sitting on top of it, it was kind of curved because you have a surface, a stencil, and then a stencil. And then I'm going to come over to these little parts, and you could use another multi-masker or you could use a piece of tape. This is one to help me not ghost, which is get paint where I don't want it, but it's also to remind me that I don't want to paint there. All right, so we are ready to paint our pumpkin. And I'm going to use color 9 and 29 for this. Nope. I'm gonna use color 9 and 31 for this. And the reason I'm going to do that is because 9 is going to be my color for my main pumpkin. I would typically use a black if I was going to paint the lines of this. However, I want to use black on my Scarecrow face. So since I want to use black on my Scarecrow face, I do not want it to be too contrasty. So I'm going to do a little mix of the colors. I'm going to bring my 31 into my 9 and mix them up a little bit. And so what I'm doing with this, I am just adding a little hint of brown to make it a little darker, but it will stay in the same color palette since I'm using that 9 that we're going to be using for our overtop. In this, I'm just adding a little bit in at a time to try to get the color that I want, and just using our off-white or our Italian offset palette knife to do the mixing here. We're making sure to get all of the edges mixed in, and I'm just going to end up using all of it. So you can make 2 bunches and add in as you go to decide how much you want, and you can add a little more, or you can put a little more of the orange in. You always add a little bit of the dark color into the light color. All right, so we are happy with that color. It's just a little bit darker. You're going to get a paper towel. And actually, I'm going to grab a couple more paper towels down here. Wipe this off. We want to wipe this off immediately and use our paper towel to dry it off and go ahead and put it back in our bin. So this is a really big area. There are a lot of ways that you can paint it. You can paint it with a polyfoam brush. You can paint it with a jumbo daub or an ink sweeper, or you can paint it with a roller. So we are going to do a little bit of rolling today. I don't have a ton of paint on my palette. I didn't mix a lot, but that's okay because once again, I don't want this to be super dark. I want this base to be a little light and dusty. I'm going to turn my board. The base coat, when I did it, is going this way. So you can see a little bit of the lines. I want to do my base coat for my pumpkin in the same direction. And actually, since I'm left-handed, I'm going to turn it this way. And we're just going to use our roller to fill in this pumpkin. And this goes so quickly. Since our stencil is over top of the edge here, you can see it's moving a little bit. So you have a couple of options. You can hold it down with your finger, or you can put another board underneath it that's a similar size to give it a flush area. So easy peasy, 1 layer, and that's all we're doing. And it has a really nice coat for our pumpkin. And it was super quick. Isn't it fun how quickly we can base coat with a roller? Now, I wouldn't do that on a lot of projects. We have quite a few projects where we paint with a roller. If it has a large area, or if you're doing a big repeating pattern, it is good for those. And I am going to put get my roller off of here. And I am going to roll this up in a baggie. We like to use the fold top baggies and just roll it up directly so that it takes out all the air. And then when we are done with this project, I will go in the bathroom and you are just going to run it under the water and squeeze it out until it has no more paint running through. Do not use soap with these. You will have soap on all your projects in the future. All right, let me go ahead and blow dry this and we'll be ready to move on. so now we are ready to add on our pumpkin layer. And with your stencils that come with multiple layers, they say things like part 1 and part 2, and this says keep this part so that you don't forget that it's part of your stencil so that you can have it to use. So with this one, I'm going to tape it at the top on top of all of our other stencils. We're getting a little thick up here. And I'm also going to tape it down a little bit closer to that base and remind myself that as I get close to it, that I don't want to, I want to make sure to use my hand and press that down since we have a few stencils stacked up. Then I'm also just taping around the edges so that it does not go anywhere. Now, I could use my roller on this again. However, we're going to use something different, and we are going to use our jumbo dome brush. It's a 1-inch dome brush. Our normal set of dome brushes, our largest one's a 5/8, and this is the one that we use for most of our stenciling. However, this one helps cover a lot of space very quickly. I'm going to go back into my number 9. You can see what colors we are talking about if you grab the Studio R12 paint color guide. We will share a link with you for that. We buy our paint in bulk. It is house paint from Sherwin-Williams. And the reason we do that is because we paint a lot and we paint in bulk. And when you are using small 2-ounce bottles, especially on things like tall porch signs, they don't last long. So we found a way that we could purchase and do our paint in bulk and that it lasts a long time for us. And it has really worked out well for us. So you can see this is changing the shade of the paint just a little bit since we're still in that same color family. And one layer really did a good job of covering up some of that brown area. Let's peel off one of these. Actually, we'll peel off the whole thing. And then you can see we have a little bit of a browner pumpkin with a little bit of an orange. And we are going to be good to go on that. One layer is going to be just good. We don't want it to be really bright and bold because we are going to paint more over top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my orange brush here. And this is already dry because we did such a light and dusty layer. And then now it's time to paint our Scarecrow. So this is a fun, quick project. We have the pumpkins and the scarecrows in lots of different sizes. So you can decide which size of this you want to do. Now, as I'm laying this out, we want to make sure that the hat covers up the top of the pumpkin. But we are kind of running into the smile not being covered as well. So we are going to manipulate this and we're going to put the hat right at the base of where that is. And then once we get done, we are going to move up the face just to make sure it fits. So this is just another way that you can mix and match and move your stencils. So this stencil originally, if you line it up square, is going to go right here. And you can do that. However, I want to make the least amount of movement for my mouth as possible. So that's why I'm turning it just a little bit. And he'll be cute with a little bit of a turned hat. So he is turned. We will tape him down. Let us know in the comments, have you painted some mix and match with your stencils? We have stencil fans who on Wednesdays get on our Facebook page and share with us photos of different projects that they have painted. That's where the inspiration for this came from. And it is a very cool way for others to get inspired and to see how not only our products, but other products are being used and how people are mixing and matching them together. So now we are going to go into our hat. I'm going to use another one of our big brushes here. You could also use the ink sweeper or the jumbo dauber. This project has a lot of big space. Now I'm also going to put, the color for the brown is number 29.
I'm going to put some of my multi-maskers along here as I get close so that I don't get into the hair portion. And then I'm going to come into a light swirl. Now with this hat, we are going to have to do a little darker of a layer because we do have to cover up that orange. And then this hat band area is kind of wobbly. If you like to use an adhesive on your stencils, this is a good time. We like to use adhesives when we get into stencils that have stripes to help hold them down. You can also hold it down with your finger. Since we are looking for a little bit more coverage, you can also do a stippling. The swirling is really good to help prevent bleeding under. The stippling will get it done a little bit faster. However, you are applying a little bit more pressure and you are pushing the paint up into your brush more because you are hitting it and you are applying the more pressure. So you do end up with more paint on your brush when you stipple. So this area is already dry and I'm going to come back here and just do a stippled layer and see if one layer of stipple is going to cover up our orange for our hat. What I'm loving about this project is that it is coming together very quickly. This would be something fun to do for fall craft shows or just to add a little fall decor to your homes. Let us know in the comments below, what do you paint for? Do you paint for yourself? Do you paint for gifts? We're filming this in September of 2024, so we are less than 100 days until Christmas, and it is time to start thinking about gifts and to start painting those gifts because sometimes projects don't come together as quickly as this one is, and if you are painting multiple gifts, you want to give yourself some time so that you're not rushed. All right, that is looking pretty good. I do want to do another coat here, but this is a little wet from where I stippled. So the stippling does take a little bit more time to dry. So I'm going to put this brush in another one of our baggies. I'm going to wrap it up tight. I'm going to let this layer dry, and then I'm going to go into our next area so that it can dry and we can get things done. And I'm super excited. Next layer, we're just going to go from top to bottom. I'm going to leave the hair where it is before we move the stencil to do the face. Steve, remind me to move the stencil after I do the hair, please. Sometimes we get ideas and then we forget as we get into the project what we're going to do. So since this Scarecrow has some pieces that come into it, it is going to be really easy for me just to put this little guy in here, and that's all the mask that I need to cover up that hat, which makes it really easy because there's a lot of areas that I could potentially bleed under. And then for the eyes, I am just going to put some tape over the edges of the eyes here that are close to the hair. And I am just putting the tape on the stencil. I am not sticking it down to the project itself. If you have wet paint and you put tape on it, when you pull it off, it will pull off paint. We know that firsthand. And so we are trying to help prevent that from happening to you unless you want that to happen. So the yellow that we are using is a number 25. And once again, we are going to use a stipple because we have lots of colors and layers of paint. So for this second piece of hair right here, we have a cream and we have two different of the oranges. So we are going to go ahead and do our first layer of stipple, and then we will probably have to blow dry to move on. What happens if you don't blow dry and it's wet when you're doing your paint is that you are going to do what we like to call digging a hole. And what that means is the paint is wet and it is pulling apart. Now, with this mask, there are some spots here with the little patch that's very close to the hair. Our brush is big, so I'm going to just layer another mask on here and continue on. So this, we'll try it. If I feel like it starts to dig a hole, we might have to blow dry, but let's try it and see. And it looks like over here it's still covering pretty well. Now, one thing about yellow is that yellow does not typically cover well. And I might actually regret not using a gray before I put down my yellow. A gray is going to be a neutral color, and it is one that we use when we are doing reds, oranges, yellows, pinks on our projects, especially when they have darker backgrounds. So the gray will help neutralize it and then give that pop of color that you want. So I am going to have to blow dry now here, and then we might have to do a couple layers before we're done with that yellow. All right, let's pull this up and see what it looks like. And it doesn't look terrible. We can say that it's, it's straw, so it's going to be kind of wonky, but we'll go ahead and do one more layer and see what a third layer does. And that also gives you the opportunity to see how the amount of layers that you are using changes the coverage of your project. So that third layer, I can already tell, is really adding a bit more coverage. And if you've noticed, I am always, when I add a paint to my paintbrush, I'm coming over to my paper towel and I am offloading. We had someone ask us the other day about this on our YouTube channel and the fact that we are wasting paint. So we have gotten that comment before, but we have found that if we just go from here to here, we're making a mess. So for us to put a little paint over on the side and prevent bleeding under, that kind of counteracts us wasting paint because our projects are turning out much better when we do it. All right, let's pull this up and I think we're good to go. Let's pull this off here. So you can see what we have so far. And ta-da! Now I do have a little bit of a gunk here where my yellow looks like it splattered a little bit. So one thing you can do is if you make a mistake, we could leave it because it's a hat. It actually would be pretty cute if we spattered through it. But you can take your click eraser. If you just take it to your project dry, nothing will happen. But if you come to your project after you put it in water, before that paint has cured, it will erase it. However, our brown paint is also still fresh, so it did pull a little of that brown paint away. So then what you would do is you could go back in. Since we are going to do this area again anyway, that's a-okay. But even if you weren't, you could go back in with your brown paint and do another layer. So let's put our stencil back down so we can go finish that brown area. And sometimes when we get into these and we do a lot of movement, it does get difficult to remember all of the little things that you want to do. I try to write them down. I don't always, especially when I'm thinking of things on the fly that I want to change. You could have also just come into this with your brown paint and painted right over that yellow spatter, and that would not have been a problem. All right, so let's pull this off, and now that looks a lot better. We have a lot more coverage. We're gonna hit it with the blow dryer, and then we're going to do the rest of the face, and we're almost done. I'm so excited. It's coming together really cute.
Nick, can you see the Scarecrow behind me on the wall? Barely. We have a video that I will share with you. We did the same Scarecrow face on a terracotta plant pot, and it turned out super duper cute. And we have been we love showing different ways that you can use the stencils on different surfaces. We love wood surfaces and wood signs. However, we know that you only have so much space in your home to do these projects. So we are trying to show some different ways. So now I'm going to go into my face. I am not thinking my way through this project very well because I do keep pulling off and doing things. I am going to probably go back into my hat and paint the flower in the patch. I could have done that while it was already placed, but I'm on a one track set right now going from top to bottom. So we are going to go into the eyes. For the eyes, we are using a number 28, which is our black. And once again, we have a large area that we're going into. So you could use a dome brush or you could use your dauber or ink sweeper. It's cool about this project is that there are so many large spaces. And going back into our stippling, I have taped off around my hairline, and I have taped off a little bit around the top of the hat so that I don't get the black paint where I don't want it. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, those of you who have seen our videos, we have hundreds of videos at this point, but I always tend to pick the projects that take lots of layers. And I never think about it until I'm painting. Oh, here's another one where we're doing lots and lots of layers. I think we're on, for this section right here, probably layer 4 or 5 with all the different colors. So since this area is large and it's still wet, I'll have to jump into the hairdryer to get this dry so that we can get it nice and bold. I will show you what it looks like with just one layer and we can decide. Actually think I kind of like it where it is. I think that looks good. So we are not going to do another layer. However, I'm going to make sure that my stencil goes back down exactly where I want it. One thing about peeking, so I was never a peeker because I got nervous that I wasn't going to be able to put my stencil back where I wanted it. And that is still an issue that I face. However, if you don't peek and you do your whole project and then realize that you made a mistake, it is harder to fix a mistake after time goes by. We have a video on how to fix mistakes, and we show some different ways that you can do it. But the main thing is time, that you have to do it in a timely manner to be able to fix those mistakes. So I'm going to put my black in here. And a lot of times with scarecrows, we do brown or orange for the nose, but I'm going to go back into the brown, number 29. We're going to do a brown nose on this. And I put my brown in the water. So we're going to go into a new dome brush. This is taking me a lot of brushes. It might not have to if you think it out when you're using the brushes. And I did not wipe off very well on this, but I'm not doing a lot of fast moving. So I'm going to get one layer in one time. And ta-da, look how cute he is. So you can stop there, but we're not going to. We're going to dry it off real quick, and we are going to finish the embellishments on the hat, and then we're going to be done. We have several Scarecrow stencils. They come in several different sizes. Some have hats, some don't. Some have different pieces that you can add to the face. So there are several things for you to shop from if you like painting scarecrows for the fall. We have had people tell us, people either love to paint for Halloween or people hate to paint for Halloween. If you're a
let us know in the comments below what you are. Do you like to paint for Halloween or do you not? It's never really a middle ground. It's normally either you love it or you hate it. All right, getting into one more set of paper towels, and I'm going to do a green for our hat. Now, I had originally pulled a number 42, which is typically the green I will use for fall projects. However, since I am painting this over brown, I'm going to use a lighter green just so it will pop a little better. So number 43 is the one that I'm going to use. And we're just going to put a little bit out. You can see that I've kind of overestimated how much paint that I'm going to use. And that tends to happen when you are painting projects with lots of colors. So once again, we're going to go into our stipple. I'm going to be very careful around this edge with the hair and add an extra multi-masker. So we used to just mask with tape, and that is tedious, and sometimes it can make you want to cry. However, we decided to try to make this tool out of Mylar so that we could use it over and over again. And it has a straight surface. It has a bunch of different wonky surfaces. It has circles in case you need to mask a circle. It has squares. It has a ruler across the edge. So this is a really wonderful tool to have. And you can see that we use them over and over and over. They have lots of paint on them, and you can just wash them carefully since they are so intricate. Wash them carefully just like you would any of your stencils, and you can use them over and over. For my flower, I'm going to do red. And you could, there's some detail here, you could do red and green. I'm just going to do red all over it rather than add some details for the green. But if you are going to do make these leaves, then you would just mask them off either with tape or with your multi-masker and then just paint around it. So for these inlays, I did not tape them down. I'm just holding them in. They fit right inside the stencil. So they are good to go in there. I'm going to get one more plastic baggie for this. Now you notice I put my green and my red in the baggies. This is such a small area. I want to go back into my brush, but since we stippled, the paint is pretty wet. So I went back and forth. I'm going to go over this one more time. Get my multi-masker here. Ta-da! And then throw this in the water. I'm not 100% certain that red is dry because that did not take much time. But since it is red, we're not covering a whole lot, especially over a dark background. So we will have to do a couple layers. All right. I think we're good to go. Are you ready to see? I'm so excited to pull this off here. I'm going to move my tape. And we're going to be really careful. So one thing I'm noticing is that obviously those did not come up. But my paint is red underneath there and it is wet. And I do not want to pull it. So I'm going to put my finger on top of the stencil, put my fingernail underneath of it, and then very gently lift it up as to not drag my paint. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. Go find a corner, put my fingernail underneath it, drag it up. And then we have an adorable little pumpkin scarecrow that you can hang on your wall. You can put them on a stand. You can paint teeny tiny ones. You can paint really big ones, but just a fun way to mix and match some stencils that you might already have in your collection. So be sure to like our video, share our video, and where it says below description, there is a see more. If you click that, you will find the timestamps for our videos. You will find links to other videos. You'll find links to collections that are similar for the products we have going on today. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll be notified anytime we add new videos and you can stay up to date. We'll see you next time.